Hi, I'm Adam Steele, a postdoc in Caroline Robertson's lab at Dartmouth College. Thanks for stopping by my poster, which describes 3 experiments which suggest that scene perception and place memory have distinct neural substrates. Theories of memory suggest that the brain activity evoked by perception is reinstated during memory recall. Evidence that mental imagery of scenes and faces activates category-selective visual areas is considered emblematic of this effect. But recent studies suggest that recall of people and places engage areas outside of the visual system. However, the relationship between perception and memory has rarely been investigated in individual subjects, so it has not been possible to say whether memory and perception engaged different brain areas. Here we address this question. We first focused on category-selective activation during perception and memory recall, which we mapped intensively in 14 subjects. We then asked whether these areas were distinct functional networks and whether they activated differently during perception compared to explicit mental imagery. To localize category-selective perceptual areas, participants saw blocks of scene and face images during fMRI scanning. To localize memory areas, participants provided a list of personally familiar people and places and recalled these stimuli as vividly as possible. Using the perception localizer, we observed parahippocampal place area, occipital place area, and medial place area on the ventral, lateral, and medial surfaces. Intriguingly, during the memory localizer, we found place memory selective areas that appeared near each of the scene perception areas. When we compared the overlap of perception and memory activity, we found that the scene perception and place memory activity was distinct. Here, one subject's scene perception areas are outlined in white, and their place memory activation is overlaid. On each cortical surface, the place memory activation is anterior to the scene perception area. The polar plots summarize this anterior shift, which was present in all 14 subjects. This anterior shift was specific to scenes and did not occur for face memory. We next asked whether the memory and perception areas act as distinct functional networks by examining the correlation of regional activity while participants watched an 11-minute video. We used video watching rather than resting state so that subjects did not engage in memory recall or mind wandering, which might have biased our results. We found that the scene perception and place memory areas segregated into different functional networks. Specifically, the activity among perception to perception and memory to memory areas was more correlated than activity between perception and memory areas. Hippocampal activity was also more correlated with the place memory areas, reinforcing the idea that the place memory areas are involved in memory. In our final experiment, we asked whether the scene perception and place memory areas were differentially engaged during perception and mental imagery. In perception trials, participants saw panning videos of unfamiliar places and were instructed to think about being in that place. During mental imagery trials, participants were shown the name of a familiar place and had to imagine that place as vividly as possible. In this example subject, you see that compared to baseline, during mental imagery, positive activation is confined within the ventral place memory area, outlined in maroon. Strikingly, the PPA, outlined in white, showed below baseline activity during mental imagery. Across all subjects, we found strong evidence that the scene perception network is not engaged by mental imagery, which is likely subserved by the place memory network. On all cortical surfaces compared to the place memory areas, the scene perception areas activated more during perception, while the place memory areas activated more during mental imagery. Remarkably, in PPA and OPA, mental imagery led to significantly below baseline activation. In conclusion, we found that the place memory network, A set of brain areas that are distinct from the scene perception network support place memory recall. The spatial relationship between the scene perception and place memory areas varied by cortical surface, and these spatial arrangements may be indicative of the overall function of these regions. In summary, we found strong evidence for a distinction between scene perception and place memory in the human brain. I hope that you enjoyed this talk, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.